box.
Hello!
Hi!
It's Wednesday
Again,
in the afternoon.
it is.
We have our trusty camera behind us today,
We do.
so
We're
we can
gonna.
show you some screen stuff.
Sarah's gonna push buttons.
I'm gonna push your buttons.
Not gonna push my buttons. You're gonna push those buttons.
Oh, somebody's always pushing somebody's buttons, right?
That is a very true statement.
Right.
Absolutely true statement. So, welcome to
Week
three of Embroidery Month, and we'll be talking about how to push the buttons to get them to do what you want them to do.
Yes, what they are and
Yep.
like our favorite ones, and maybe use them slightly different than what they were intended for.
Maybe. Possibly.
You know, we have trouble with that following directions.
Directions are so hard.
Yes.
I don't know why people bother with directions.
I know. But it's but we didn't have to sit through hours of training this week.
We did not.
So
we did not do that this week. So it's been a different week.
Yes.
We've been on the sales floor,
Mm-hmm.
prepping for classes.
Yes.
And
yep. Tucker had her intro to PE and palette again last week on Friday morning, and that was fun. And we had some
very well and
new palette and PE owners.
I
So
just gave myself a
was
colic.
fun. And Lisa has an embroidery club
on Friday.
Maybe we kind of just stopped calling the classes club classes, and we just decided to call them classes. But your punch card still works.
Your punch cards will still work. So your punch cards are actually going to work on more things now than they ever did before, which we think is a huge benefit for you. Hopefully you feel the same way. But, the thought was rather than having them only be valid for this, or this, you can still apply it. It'll just either cover the entire fee or it'll cover part of the fee.
Right. So they're just not going to be valid on events.
In-store events.
Yes.
Or there was something else. Mostly in-store events.
Yes.
Yep.
Whether they be Kimberbell or
like an OASD or that kind of thing. They're not valid on those types of things.
Yes. Because those are traditionally...
They're just different.
Yes.
They're just different. But other than that, it'll be valid on just about everything.
Yes.
And so, that'll be, I think, a good thing for you. We did find out, we rearranged, due to that, we've rearranged some things on the website.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of doing that, we somehow made the coupons not work when you went to type it in at the checkout. So apologies if you had that problem. It has been fixed, and you should have no problem
getting
applying it to
$20
whatever it is that you're trying to register for.
Right.
So for sure.
And what we're talking about is we have like a $75 prepay punch card, which gets you about a $5 discount per class, regardless of what the class.
Now it doesn't matter what class. You can apply it to any class that you would like. So, if the class is $100, you can use $20 off of that, and it costs you $80 instead.
Right.
Instead of just having it have to have club in the name of it. So we just kind of the club name and change that up a little bit.
Yeah. Give you more options.
Give you more options.
We do have embroidery class. So we're doing a card on Friday.
Yep.
And then we have a rotary cutting class on Saturday. Lisa's class is both in person and virtual.
Yep.
My class is going to be hands-on, but I do have plans to run a virtual version
next month.
Yes.
Yep.
But it's easier to do one or the other with this one so that I can give the correct attention to the right people and not feel like anybody's missing out. So
sounds excellent.
Yes. So we do have those classes, and then we're going to send out another email later on this evening with the classes if you're interested. But should we just get
we
talking?
should just jump in.
All right.
But first of all, hi to Joan. I'm so sorry it's chilly. I feel like it's chilly here, but everybody else says it's just fine.
It's almost 60 here.
It's like I know it says that it's 60. It doesn't feel 60. So yes, and we'll be happy to push the buttons for you. And hi, Mom. And
And Marina is asking about embroidery classes virtual. We have
Almost
continuously
every embroidery class I offer as a hybrid. So you can take it virtually or in store, whichever you would prefer.
Yeah. So the one that is on Friday is both
Yep.
virtual via Zoom and then in person as well at the same time. So
Yepers.
lots of
So
choices.
most definitely. Great question, though. Thank you.
Yeah.
So buttons. Who's got the buttons?
Yes. It's 30. Well, it's definitely warmer here than. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
It's it does not feel warm to me,
No.
but you know, is it? There we go.
Yeah, I'll find the
So
right.
many buttons.
So many buttons.
Different
I know
kinds
they
of
all
pushing
start
of the
to look
buttons.
the same. All right, so we are staying at our Solaris. This is the Solaris Vision, which happens to be the third version of the Solaris. These buttons, while some of them will be exclusive to this particular machine, a lot of the buttons will look the same or very similar. Even on our entry-level embroidery machines, there'll be a few more on here, and we'll talk about things that are like exclusive to this particular model, and then talk about the things that might be different. But traditionally, when we turn our machine on, if you have a sewing and an embroidery machine, you will have a variety of features that you can pick from here. We have sewing, embroidery, and we have IQ Designer. We're going to talk about embroidery today. So we're going to go ahead and just select the embroidery button, and then we're going to get to our standard screen here. This screen is similar on a lot of machines.
It is. There's one difference that I do want to point out because I think that it's an important thing, especially if you're just getting started. If you have a machine that says embroidery and then embroidery edit underneath of it, they are different.
Yes.
They are not going to be exactly the same. If you just tap the word embroidery on a machine that has both options, you don't get an editing page.
Right.
You go right from saying, yes, I want to stitch this, to the page that says, okay, let's stitch this.
Yes.
You jump over that editing feature options.
Yep. So if you can't find your editing features,
you may
might
have selected the wrong, or not necessarily wrong, but that button. So if you want to be able to push the buttons,
yes,
you'll want to select embroidery edit if you have that word on your home screen. So I personally recommend that you use that all of the time, and that way you're not, oh crap, now I have to start all over because I didn't get what I wanted.
Right.
So if you always go into the embroidery edit, it just saves a little bit of time later on, most of the time.
Absolutely. So, no real reason not to.
There isn't. A few machines, not all, but there are a couple out there that have embroidery and embroidery edit that if you're trying to do bobbin work, you'd be an embroidery edit. But that's the only reason, in my opinion, to not choose embroidery edit. So.
All right. So this screen might look different depending on the version of machine that you have. But essentially what we have over here, and depending on how big your screen is, you know, some of the smaller machines, this is going to be a little bit more compact, so you won't have quite as much space over here. Yep. But starting at the top here, we have a percentage, so we can zoom in or out. And then we have this hand button, and then we have some features over here, and these little guys here are representation of the hoops that come with the machine. Right. They are not all of the hoops that are available for the machine.
Correct. So you could have something that you have in your stockpile that is not going to ever show there, and you can't make it show there, right, by the way.
But that's okay.
That's okay.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, and then next to this, we have some blank spaces. So when we actually go to
choose something,
choose a design, this is where you're going to see how big the design is. It'll and that will change depending on the size of the design that we have. And then over here, we have a picture of our hoop. And this really isn't going to mean anything right now because we don't actually have anything selected. And then the stuff that we have down here, this is where we get to choose our embroidery design from, whether we're going to choose it from a built-in design or we're going to choose it from
some sort of
memory. This is where it can be a little bit different on machines.
Yep.
They've recently started hiding like the peripherals. So where the designs are saved, like to the sewing machine that you saved, your USB sticks, or where you like get a design from Wi-Fi. They started hiding them in this little area over here that looks like a pocket. Yep, and so when we touch this, along the top here, these icons might be more familiar depending on the machine that you have. You might actually just see those
like
icons.
on the previous version to this, you know, the small one step down from here, you have like a little square at the bottom that has all your different memory options, but you have a smaller image of each of these.
Yes.
And so this is the first machine that they were buried completely. So, you know, it's one of those things we always like, don't forget, if you're looking for a USB, you got to push that. So anytime you see that pocket, it's memory is what that's telling you.
Yep. So that's where you'll find, and you've got the picture of the sewing machine. That sewing machine icon is going to have designs that you have saved to the machine, not the designs that were built into the machine. That's different.
Yep.
These are all of the things that Lisa and I have saved to this machine for various reasons.
Lots of reasons.
And then we have 2 different USB ports on the side here. If you were looking at the side of your machine, you would see 2 different USB ports. The only thing that really designates the difference between them is one of them has a little picture of a mouse with a little wire going on it. So like a computer mouse, not like Mickey Mouse.
Right.
And then an SD card and a Wi-Fi icon.
So on this machine, both of those USB ports are the same speed.
Yes.
On some of the step downs from here, they are not all the same speed. So they could be a 2.0 and a 3.0 or something like that. So you do want to pay a little bit of attention of what you're putting in there.
I'm not sure I understand.
My watch is very confused.
The watch doesn't know what's happening.
Apparently it was fine until you said 2.0 or 3.0. And then it was like, no.
Can't do it.
Not going to happen.
But yeah, so there's so many ways you can bring designs into the machines these days.
Yes.
A lot of our machines, like half, I think, of the machines at this point are wireless. So you can bring something in from your computer without a USB. Not very many have the SD card anymore, but
a couple do.
There are a couple out there that do. And it is a nice, you know, certainly an easy way to save something in there. Maybe not so much transferring, but maybe kind of think of it as an additional machine memory. If you like to save a lot, that would be one thing that you could put those to.
Yeah, and they're pretty secure because they kind of go in and they don't stick out.
Nope.
And they don't fail quite as often as a USB stick does.
No, definitely not. It is a more secure and safe environment, I think, for that. So, you know, I think of that more personally as kind of an extended, like my external hard drive kind of thing, which is not, don't mind, but you can put, you know, a lot on there and it's very secure. It's kind of just an easy machine memory type thing. It's just not always an available choice, but but most of the time it is.
And we also have this little arrow over here. So I touched the arrow, which kind of brought everything up. You might be looking at your screen and you might still see this.
This is the default.
Yes.
When it's brand new, this is what you will see.
The advantage of this is that I can see more of the designs at a time, but the disadvantage is if I actually select a design,
you can't see it.
I can't see it. I know that I selected it because I suddenly have information at the top here that tells us the size of the design, and the bottom of my
set
corner
button has lit up.
Right. Right. So I know that I have selected something, but I can't actually see it. So once you select something on this particular style machine, you suddenly have a new button over here that has like a little information button. It's like an eye with a dot. When you select this is a really nice feature. You get this little printout here. It's not really a printout, but it looks like it looks like the old-fashioned when we used to print out our color changes for everything.
Yeah, you get that listing of your design from whoever designed it.
Yes.
Whatever company you bought it from. This was very commonly what you would see in the instructions is it would show you color stop one, so on and so forth. And these are the colors that you would want to have prepped to do that design. This machine does also have the ability to have a dark background there. So sometimes you just want to see what something's going to look like. You can toggle between a light and a dark, or if it's got a lot of light threads, you could view it on the dark without changing all of your other settings. You could view it on that very, very easily.
So not all machines will have this particular feature, but if that little eye with
that eye pops up, and it's on a lot of machines,
not many of the older style machines like 5x7, 4x4, you might not have
It's
that
going to be
information.
the larger screen machines that would have that option.
Yeah, but if you have a pretty big screen, you'll probably have something like that.
But it's nice. You can see, you know, how many times am I going to have to change thread?
Threads.
What threads are those going to be?
Yes.
And you can see
And
the image a little bit larger.
Which is a really nice feature.
It is. It's definitely an add-on, in my opinion, for sure.
And we still have that set button down here at the bottom. So if this was the design that I wanted to go ahead and do, you can do that. If you're fancy and you have like a smartphone next to you, you can snap a little picture of this area here and then have it on your phone if you're trying to figure out what color is what, or what color is going to be coming up. It's a nice way to sort of get yourself ahead.
Absolutely.
So we'll close that screen there. And then the other thing that you have right next to that is this little hoop button. This is really a nice feature. I like this because a lot of people, they really don't know how big this is. Just visually in your,
what is it going to actually look like when I stitch this?
Yes.
You know, your brain says, oh, 7 inches, or what it says one number, and your brain says it's going to look like this. This actually will tell you, if you put this in your big hoop, that's how much room it's going to take up.
Yeah, and it will also like not let you select a hoop that's too small. So, but it does have other hoops, so I could try it in a different size hoop here. And so it doesn't have to be that one.
Yep.
The other thing that's really nice is we have a magnifying lens, so I can really zoom in on this. And then, do you ever use this feature?
I actually do.
Yeah, it's kind of fun, right? This is like, will let you play the design. So we've had this feature in software for many, many years. When you touch the design, it will kind of show you the order that it's going to stitch. And then you can make it go faster or slower. So if you're wondering what part of the design is going to come first, this is a really fun way of being able to sort of figure it out.
You know, if you're trying to cheat and say, okay, I don't want to do that color change, I see this color's used later on.
Yeah.
Am I safe to stitch it now, or am I going to end up covering something up?
Right.
This would tell you that.
Yeah.
You can see exactly what comes first. And like you said, you can change the speed of how fast it's stitching.
Yep, and then you can also go backwards. So if you didn't like, you know, you needed to just see something back again.
Yep.
But it's a really nice way of being able to kind of
prepare yourself a little before you get there.
Yeah, especially
Make
if you're
plan.
And if you're new to embroidery, or if maybe it's a new designer that you've never stitched out before, sometimes it's nice to be able to see.
There is definitely a difference from one digitizer to the next in their techniques, and you know, this person does the underlay here and that person skips the underlay altogether.
Right.
Well, you would know that by watching.
Exactly. So like if we took like our 3 big people, Kimber Bell, Anita Good Design, and OESD, and you did an applique for all 3 of them, they are like, you wouldn't even think that you could do
things that different,
but they are
they
literally
do.
Completely different. All of them have a really unique way of doing that. So if you're used to doing Anita Good Design and you're like, this is my first Kimber Bell, do this if you have this option.
Let you see in advance. It's like looking into the future.
Yes.
Of what's going to happen and how am I going to succeed in this project.
Exactly.
You can really get a good plan, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So that's fun. That's really fun. And that is underneath the frame view.
Yes. So I'm going to return here because I want to go back to this screen here. So we were kind of just playing around with...
that was all under that button.
Yep. With the things that were like on our USB stick and where you can find all of those things. But these are the things that are built into the machine. If you have a baby lock, you'll probably have a little thing on there that says exclusives.
Yep.
If you have a brother combo machine, you might have one that says Disney on it. So the buttons might change just a little bit between the 2 brands, but you will have very similar features. Sometimes the designs are a little bit different between them. Sometimes there are some that are the same.
There's like a core that are the same. Those, I don't know who designed them at what point, but there's a core that are going to be the same. But yes, there's definitely going to be some variance from one brand to the next, even in the same style of machine.
Exactly.
For sure. But once you get into texts and the shapes and those things, those are going to be pretty much the same.
Yep.
So there's definitely standardized menus as well.
Exactly. So we have our built-ins here. We have some specialties. So depending on the version of baby lock one that you might have, or brother one that you have, depending on if you have like a 1, 2, or 3, if you've done the free updates, you might have number 7 and number 8. They might be grayed out on your machine because those are part of the upgrades.
It's just a big tease is what that is.
Yes.
But yes, that would show you when you do the update, it will put all of the information for an upgrade in there.
Exactly.
You just can't activate it and access it unless you've actually done the paid portion.
Right. So let's pick a design. I think we should pick this cute sewing machine because
I totally agree.
It's super cute.
It is very well done.
And then we're going to set it to the screen because we can't access some of the other features on the machine until we get to this point. Anything special? This is really just the add or delete part. Anything special to say about this particular part?
I'm not really. You can see the size that you have up top. Again, what hoops that you can use are very clearly seen up there. You do have a zoom feature here. Before going into any menus, you could zoom in as well. If you have more than one on screen, the select arrows at the bottom are going to allow you to toggle between those. Sometimes it's something's behind something else. You can't touch it to bring that up. So those select arrows are really great. But nope, we're pretty straightforward at this point.
So we'll have an edit feature here. And on some older machines, does it still say edit here, or does it have a different word for it?
So this one, they all say edit.
Okay.
It's the next one that's slightly different.
So in our edit screen, this is kind of, you've brought the design up or multiple designs up, and now you want to make changes to the individual designs. This is the screen that we're going to do the changes to.
Yep. So this is that embroidery edit page that you would skip over if you chose the wrong button. You wouldn't get any of these tools.
Yes.
Depending upon the size of the machine that you have, if your screen is about this big, you're going to have a small image here, and then these are going to be in lines over there. If you have still a large screen, but not quite as large as this, you'll have little icons along here. And then trying to think what the Dreams and the Destinies, the other screens like this still have the drop downs. So you either have them in a row over here, and they might be circular buttons instead of squares. Sometimes they do change that up a little bit, but what's in them and what they do isn't going to change. So once you understand the sizing features, that's the same on all of the machines, no matter what machine that you're in, until you get to the point where you can change the design. They're going to be the same. So, you know, the 4 arrows pointing and all of those things are going to equal the same. So all of these buttons, once you learn it, it's good to go no matter what machine that you're moving into.
Right. So we have the basic features: size, move, rotate. These are the reason that I like them so much is because I appreciate the fact that it says that it's size. It's not just a generic hieroglyph that
arrows
I'm trying to
pointing
figure
somewhere, and then you're supposed to know what arrows mean.
Right.
You know, you want to resize it, you push the size button. You want to rotate it, you push the rotate button. It's not a circled arrow that you're supposed to go, is that recycling?
Right. Exactly. You know, the mirror image button is the same on the embroidery side as it is on the sewing side if you have mirror image. So you've got kind of like a recognition of the different styles of buttons, which is appreciative, especially when we're trying to teach, right?
Absolutely. You know, there's definitely a very consistent process no matter where you're at. It's very consistent from machine to machine. Like we said, even the 4x4s have the same style buttons. It's just a matter of what other added features you pick up as you go. But everything is that really user-friendly and easy approach, for sure.
So this button here is not going to be, so a lot of the machines are going to have size, move, and rotate.
Yep.
And then many have mirror image, but not all of them have.
They don't all have a duplicate copy, whatever
paste,
it is technically called duplicate, but yeah, that copy is definitely not on everything, for sure. Yeah.
Density is a button that will be on certain machines, and it will also only be available on certain types of designs. Designs, that is the word.
Yes, absolutely. So your font is one thing that you can adjust. And then if you resize things, it tends to pop up more
Yeah.
If you've done some resizing, it would maybe give you a little tweaking possibility.
Right. Or if we picked a design with maybe a fill in it, we would have a little bit more choices. This is an applique design, so there's not
Not a whole
of
lot of changing
density
to be done there.
So if it's something that cannot be done for that particular style of design, it won't let you do that.
These
so
machines are
it's
super
grayed out.
smart, which is really nice until some days you feel like it's smarter than you are. And
Yes.
then it's like, how do I feel about that? But
Yes.
I love how smart, it won't let you make those mistakes.
Right.
If it's not an available option or you're going to mess it up by doing it, it doesn't give you the option.
Right.
Which is awesome.
And we don't have the text feature because we don't have any text on the screen. And this is lining everything up. And we also don't have anything. We don't have more than
There's
one
only
design.
one design on screen, which is why that's grayed out.
Yes.
Yep.
And these two buttons here, so we have a lot of machines that have the design center or the IQ designer features. And this button here is going to be kind of exclusive to that. That's going to take a snapshot of basically what the outside of your design does. And then this button here allows us to do some quilting in the background, which again will be sort of exclusive to the certain styles of machines.
So pretty much anything that has the design center or an IQ designer in it would have that option
Exactly.
in some way, shape, or form. So you get a little extra stuff on some of the higher end ones, but that is going to be on something if you have the design center.
Yes. And these bottom two features here are new to the third installation of either the Solaris or the Luminaire.
Yep.
This allows us to swap options. So when we pull up a second design, we'll be able to decide which design we want to stitch first. If without this, we have to manually go through the design.
So if you had to add a design before you can add the name or the circle or that goes around it,
Exactly.
but you want the circle to stitch first, you can go in there and change that. You can tell the machine, I want you to stitch this design before, even though I didn't program it that way, you can go in and swap it.
Exactly.
So.
And this button down here is a no-sew feature. And then down...
Sounds really silly, but I love that no-sew
feature. It's a really fun feature. And then
it's so nice.
Down here we have those select options, add and delete. So I'm going to add something so that we can get
a few more things accessed
we'll
up there.
We'll add a text so we can have access to the rest of our buttons. So I'm just going to touch the add button down here, and then I'm going to just touch the text button here. It doesn't really matter what font we pick. I like this one personally. And I'm literally just going to do ABC. So from here, I have new icons because I'm in a completely new setting. Do you have a favorite in the font that you use that you find yourself using a lot?
Probably not as much as I used to. I used to do names and that's all I did. So I used them a lot, but I don't do that as much anymore. So I love the ability to do the multi-line text, which we now have on everything but our most entry level. Is now available for multi-line text, which is really great.
Which means that I have like an enter key here, and I can then put more letters.
Which is great. If you're trying to put something in and it will line them up, doesn't mean that you can't move that afterwards, but it'll line it up and center it or whatever for you, because we got that button there too.
Yes.
So you can say, I want it right justified or left justified. One of the newer additions that I think is fantastic is the ability to say, that's not the font that I thought it was. I can go in there and change the whole shebang to a different font.
And I don't have to
restart. I don't have to restart.
Yeah, that's my favorite
That
one.
is
that's
just for me.
here.
Yeah. So you can literally kind of, preview and change. So you just tap another one and it'll change on screen. So you can see what that's going to look like.
Exactly.
It is so fantastic.
Yeah, it's really nice to be able to pick and choose the font or to be able to like audition whatever
That's the word I was looking for. Audition. Yes.
Yeah.
I love the ability to do that. The ability to do one letter or all the letters is not new, but I think it's fun. You can have a lot of fun with fonts. And I don't know that this is as explored as it really, I don't think people always recognize all of the crazy things you can do. I can take the first letter, move it, make it bigger, change the font of just that one letter, and I can do that all here in the machine. I can change the color of it. I can do all of those things right at the machine. I don't have to have special software to do that.
Right.
And I don't know that people realize how much you can really play with your fonts at the machine.
Yeah, but you have a lot of buttons down here. And the thing that I like to tell people is we wouldn't give you the buttons if it wasn't okay to touch them. So touch them. It would not be an option. If it was bad for you to do that, it wouldn't
be there. Nope.
So
absolutely.
we're going to just go ahead and set that. Oh, look, it kind of nested right underneath.
It nested just
almost
perfectly
like
in
I
there.
was planning it.
So hi to everybody that's just joining us. Welcome.
So now I'll touch my edit screen again, and you can see that I still don't have my text box on there. And,
Yep.
and
do you know why?
Because I have
because it's multi-line
text. Yes.
Yep.
So this is going to happen to you. You're inevitably going to be like, why still can't
I
do
just
it?
put text on a screen. What just happened to me?
Yeah, and it's because we have the multi-line text. So
Yep,
we would
so-
have to go in and split it.
We have to ungroup that section and then we can play with that text.
Yes.
Yep.
If that was what we wanted to do. But we did get some of our other buttons. Like we have the justification kind of lineup button here. So when I tap this button here, I'll get this picture here, and now it's asking me, where do I want to put things? Now it's still not letting me do it.
And the reason is we have to have both items selected.
selected.
So now we're saying, I want you to take these two things and either align them this way, this way, you know, so on and so forth. So you can tell it, I want where I want that alignment to be at.
And they give you a bunch of different places, which is kind of nice. So you can play with them, or we can go back and put it back in the center or whatever. And then if we hate everything that we did, we can hit the reset button and it goes back.
The wonderful thing is that it really gives you the ability to, again, do a lot on screen. So they just keep adding those editing features as you move up. You get more and more things that you can do right at the machine, which is just phenomenal.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So sometimes you think, oh goodness, I'm in here, why can't I do it? And a lot of times it's because, like Lisa said, we have to have everything selected in order to be able to perform this, because otherwise it doesn't know what is it lining it up with.
Right.
Right.
It doesn't know. You can't align one design, which is why it was completely grayed out before. So,
exactly.
But you still have to tell it what. So the cool thing about that is if we had 3 things on the screen, but we wanted only 2 of them shifted, we just tell them the 2 that we want to align.
Right.
You don't have to align everything to that specific spot.
It just has to be more than one.
It has to be more than one.
Yes.
So you can pick and choose which parts that you're telling it what to do with.
Exactly. And now we have the ability to move the design. So traditionally, a machine will stitch a design in the order that you put the designs on your screen.
Yep. So set, add, set, add, and so on.
That is the order.
That's the order it's going to stitch.
So,
and for years, we've been hitting our needle plus minus and jumping around the design to make it do whatever it is that we want it to do.
Exactly.
We don't have to do that anymore.
No. So now I've got my 2 different icons over here, or 2 different designs over here, and I've got 2 new icons down here. It's asking me, where do you want to put this design? So if I want to move this over to the top, I just touch the button and you can see it now moved to the top. Now I have a different set of icons on the left because now it's asking me, do you want to take that? Do you want to move it down?
Do you want to move it again?
So yes, if we had more than 2 designs on here,
then it makes a difference, for sure.
Yes, again, we can keep moving it up or down in the sequence of order. But that's a really nice feature to be able to have. It really
is. You know, there's a lot of times you have to put something on the screen before you know where to put the next thing on the screen.
Yeah.
But you didn't really want that first thing to stitch first.
Right.
And like I said before, we had to jump around to tell it where to go.
Or delete it and bring it back in.
Yep.
You just had a lot more things
It was
to
just, this is so easy.
Yes.
You just push the button. And of course, there's a reset on there too. So if you've messed up whatever,
yes,
you can just hit reset and go back to your original, which is super fun.
Yes.
And cool.
And we also have this feature here, which is the no-sew button. So again, I only have one thing highlighted right now, which happens to be the ABC. If I wanted to have the no-show option for all of them, we would need to use the select button that Lisa was talking about earlier. So I can select, I can toggle between the different parts of my design, but I can also go in here and actually tell it that I would like you to select them all.
You sure can.
So when I select this button over here, it's going to just continue to select basically
it's going to
from
go back
the
and
2.
forth.
This is like our group button.
That's like select all.
Yes.
So you got to select all and you got to take away all.
Yep.
And then you can toggle between and then select the individual item as you're working.
Yes.
So yeah, it's very intuitive. It's pretty straightforward. And now you can see we have them both selected.
I have a little red box around both.
Yep.
And then
And so that actually will take away because remember we were talking about that grouped item before? It's the same thing. So sometimes when you have something grouped, it doesn't really know what
to do with
it. So it gets rid of
Yeah.
a lot of those features that you aren't able to do.
Right.
One thing that I definitely use that grouping feature for is this button because I want it to go around all of it, not just one or the other. And if you
Yes.
don't have them grouped and you go in to the auto stipple, auto echo, auto deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. It's a mouthful.
Yes.
But if you go into there, this would then work with all of the designs on screen instead of just the one individual.
Exactly. So sometimes, again, we think what we're doing is the right button, and then you realize that it really wasn't what
You're like,
I meant.
Oh crap, that's not what I
Yes.
meant to do.
So
it certainly happens to all
of
of us.
Yes. But the nice thing is it's very easy to go in and then just
undo.
Reselect. But this button would allow us to pick and choose the different parts of the design. And then we'll talk about this stipple button here.
Since we're grouped, that works.
Since we're grouped.
So if you weren't grouped, you would only see the ABC or only see the sewing machine on this page.
Correct.
So that is why it's nice to have that grouped before you come in here, because otherwise you're only working with whatever it is that you've got the red box around.
Absolutely.
And whenever I use this, you generally want everything on your screen.
I generally want everything
selected
on my screen.
to do this.
Yeah.
And what this does is it gives us quilting options, or maybe just decorative stitching. It doesn't actually have to be quilting per se. It could just be used as a decorative stitch. And we have a stipple, we have an echo. I love the echo. It just makes my day every time I see an echo. I just love the way that looks. Then we have that third item there that does a deco stitch, which is all of the different built-ins. So that will be... I'm trying to think, depending on which dream or destiny you had, you'll just have the original stipple. And then I feel like they added the deco into that, but it's limited.
Yes.
So you've got some limitations depending upon your machine. And in this, you have the ability to choose the hoop size that you're stitching, the decorative stitch that you're choosing. You can change the size of it, how close it stitches to your design.
Exactly.
And again, the computer does all the thinking for you, which I love.
Yes.
It's so nice.
If you have upgraded your Luminaire or Solaris to 3, or you have a version 3, we've been talking about those new custom fills that you can get from Baby Lock. You can also use your custom fills in here. And anything that you have loaded up will just magically show up there. And you can add those in, and then that could be your background. And one of the beautiful things about that is we do get that ability to adjust the size of those. That's really tiny quilting, so I like to make it a little bit bigger back there. Takes a second for that to populate.
I very rarely use 100%. I don't know about you, but I am quite often upping that. I'm usually at least 125, if not 150.
Exactly.
Is my tend to go tos.
Yeah, the important part about here is make sure that you pick the hoop that you're going to be using, because if you really intended to use your 10 by 10 and you let it fill the 10 and a half.
Yeah, when you go to stitch it, it'll tell you need a bigger hoop.
In the next page, it's not going to fit.
Yeah, so you'll need a bigger hoop.
Yes. And then we would just select OK. And now you can see that we've added that feature. And again, I've got my no-sew. I keep wanting to call it stabilizer. I've got that feature so I can turn pieces of my design off. And ironically, now I have everything, which is a really nice feature. But I don't have the ability to adjust the design by pieces right now. So there is that. We have to adjust
There you go.
all of our pieces, yes.
That
We
changes
have
what
to
buttons
have
then you have.
everything selected again. But one of the really nice things about being able to do that, of course, is in a perfect world, I would want this
You want to stitch your
to
quilting
stitch
first. Yep.
So I would be able to select this guy and
move it
take
to the
that all
top.
the way to the front, and then I would be able to stitch that out. And
Yep.
that's probably the order that I would stitch it out. I probably wouldn't keep that there, but
Nope, I wouldn't either.
right.
But you still have the ability to add too.
Yes,
So if that
and
font wasn't there, you just regrouped.
I did, yes. Select. Sometimes it's easier if you just use the buttons that are there, but I would probably move those pieces.
Yep. And if you hadn't added the font in before, you could add it now.
Mm-hmm.
All of the add features and things are still available. So you also have the ability to add more to this. You know, you could put a monogram letter in there if that's, you know, what you were going with. You could put a name underneath. There's, you know, you could put, we've done this on different things where we put like a name actually fitting in the base of a machine. You could add flowers or whatever from,
from
you know,
different
from
parts
different
of
parts of designs and combine different built-ins to create the thing that you're actually looking for. So there's just a ton of options really once you get in here.
Marina still wants us to come and open a store in North Carolina.
I like North Carolina.
But these are the basic stitches. So I have way too much stuff on here, probably to talk about the next couple of icons here.
Possibly.
But
so
we'll delete a couple things.
We can either do that or just hit home and start over with something else, one or the other.
So we'll select home, go back to embroidery, and
let's go back to the sewing machine and show them how we can shrink everything down with the different
okay, yep, absolutely. Our resize.
Yep.
All right.
So default sizing, we've talked about the size button, but we really didn't talk about what it does. All machines, when you press the size button, have the ability to go up 20% or down 10%. That could be a built-in, that could be something that you bring in off your USB. It really doesn't matter where it came from. And your fonts are in a whole different ballgame. But in here, we could go up or down 10 or 20s,
and
right?
So I haven't, this is the default. So I went from, now I'm at 7.32 by 8.5. I was at 8.14 by 9.44, and then I could increase that size. And again, I'm going to cap out at what my choice is.
So if we rotated it, we could probably go just a hair bigger, but not much actually. But that would be you know, you could do that.
Yep.
But the button right next to that, that is a wonderful thing. So the first thing, this is kind of annoying to me, but I understand it. It says, okay, whatever you just did, I'm going to take it away.
Yes.
So it's going to reset it back to its original. But if you wanted to make something a lot bigger or a lot smaller, there are quite a few machines now that have the ability to recalculate the stitches as well. So the first thing you have to do is hit that little zigzag button. And then you can make it 200. So we're adding a whole zero, a whole decimal point there, 200% larger instead of just the 200. So huge, huge capabilities here for sure.
Yeah.
Again, fonts don't count.
That's
another whole nother thing.
And this is probably not how I would want to stitch
I mean,
a
yeah,
design,
I probably wouldn't want to do that.
But it does give you the idea that it really doesn't matter if it's like stretching it unproportionately or...
Nope, it's still filling in the spots, and it's making the flowers are going to look stretched, but they're going to look full flowers that are stretched and so on and so forth. So, but this also brings a point of just because you can
doesn't mean you should.
Doesn't necessarily mean that you should. So in this instance, please don't stitch this. You're not going to be happy with it when it's done. So if we hit reset and we go back, let's shrink. So the shrinking isn't exactly just adding a zero on, but it does give us the ability to go down 60%. That's a 60%. And that is a lot of shrinkage. But if you really think about what it's doing in there, it makes sense that you can't change that much, right?
Right.
Because it's got to condense and still keep shapes and all of those things. And this works very, very well. I have played with this a lot. The only time I've ever seen a mistake, and it's not a mistake, it's just what happened, is if I have an actual font, like separate letters, not just a stitched line here, it doesn't know it's a font. So you might lose the dot of an I because it's removing stitches out to keep it in,
Right.
you know, it's just looking at that shape and you shrink it. So, you know, the cross of your T might only be half there, or
Right.
dots of an I. Again, this is a design that has font in it, and that is the only thing that's ever I've noticed that didn't work.
Yeah.
Quote unquote.
Yeah.
But it worked. It just didn't do what I wanted it to do.
Exactly. Now, if you have a design, like, we know where our designs are coming from, and we're using designs that we trust. If you download some random design that someone,
And it's bulletproof.
right, and that someone maybe just didn't digitize really well, and you shrink this or you make it bigger, it's not going to make the design better. So if it didn't stitch out well before and you shrink it or you make it bigger and you're recalculating your stitches, don't expect it to get better.
It's not going to fix a bad design by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
You're just compounding whatever was already going on.
Right. And I have seen poorly digitized designs shrunk, and it has done weird things to them. Like, it's no longer, like, it didn't keep the same type of fill stitch. It did adjust that a little bit. But again, I kind of knew going into it that it was probably something that was originally auto-digitized, and there was some random thing in there, and it just didn't really have, it wasn't a good bones design. So, you know, whenever you do something like this is not the time to put it on like an heirloom type, something that you can't replace. You're going to want to stitch out. It does a fantastic job, but sometimes it's still, you might, like she said, you know, if you're writing a word and you lose the dot or you lose a piece of a font, it can change the whole meaning of the word, perhaps.
that could happen.
You know, and so you definitely want to make sure that you just pay attention to that. They're designed to work, and it's designed to work very well.
And it does.
But it can go
But you have
awry.
you have to come at it with the, oh, it doesn't know that this is an I. It's just a design. It doesn't know that those are letters. It's just a straight line with a circle on the top or whatever. It doesn't know that it's a letter.
Yes.
And it's just it's looking at it as a whole and going, okay, where can I remove it and still have it stitch out really well?
Yep.
So that's what happens with that. You have to remember it is a computer. It's not a person. It can't look at that and go, oh, that's a really pretty sewing machine.
Yep.
Let's do this.
Exactly.
So super, super important to recognize what it's capable of and respect that, but don't ask it to do things that you know there's no way for it to do.
Right.
So there's no magic wand in there, unfortunately.
No, I mean, like we said, it does
pretty
a
magical.
really, really good job.
It's pretty magical, but there are limits to what you can do there.
And we have this particular design. We have adjusted the size, and we do now have our density button. So we can decrease the density of the design a little bit. Whenever you do this, you still get the ability to like zoom in on the design here. So you can kind of look at it. It's getting just a little kind of...
A little sketchy on the top there.
Right. So, and a little sketchy down here. Now, part of this is going to be applique, so it might not matter, but maybe that flower is not great.
Not going to be bold enough.
Right. So, you know, we've learned to actually to check the design.
Physically look at that, just like we are doing right here. We hit the zoom and we look at what the design actually is going to look like stitched out. If you can see through it on the screen, you're going to be able to see through it on your fabric. So don't think it's going to magically fix when you go to stitch that out. Whenever you do that resizing with recalculation, the density does tend to pop up there. So you have it when you have a font, and you'll have it when you've resized something like that, are the times that you generally will see that density option pop up. But again, just because you can doesn't mean you always should.
Right.
So please be aware and look before you go to stitch that out.
Exactly.
So let's talk about that beauty.
This is,
I love this
Lisa
button.
has affectionately dubbed this the 9 square button because there are
it's
9
9
squares.
squares. And it has an L. No, I'm
And
just
it
kidding.
has an L, right? Right, yes. What this was originally designed for was like continuous stitching.
It is.
So
It's actually a border feature tool
right,
is
the
the
border
idea behind
function
it.
feature. But what it really does nicely is it allows you to add multiple of the same design, and it automatically color sorts for you in a way that the color sort feature on the machine doesn't do.
Correct. It's just wicked awesome.
Yes.
It's my favorite button. So, you know, even if you're just doing 2 of something, it's still better to do 2 on here. You can spread them out, you can move them around because the machine will do that color sorting for you. So what does color sort mean for any of you that don't know what that means?
Right.
If I have 2 of these, I've got, let's just say 12 colors in here. I didn't actually look to see how many we
In
have.
an applique.
In an applique, okay? So we've got 12 different color stops here. I'm going to stitch pink, I'm going to stitch gray, then I'm going to go to orange, then I'm going to go to yellow, and I'm going to have to stitch that whole thing. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to have to stitch pink, and I'm going to have to stitch gray, and I'm going to have to stitch orange. Instead of doing that, it does the pink for both. So 1 color stop instead of 2.
Right.
So it literally changes how many times you have to change the color in your machine.
Yes.
In half, or in however many times that you are actually repeating it.
Yes.
But it'll do all of color stop number 1 at the same time.
Exactly.
And it does it automatically.
And the buttons up here are basically telling the machine, where do we want to duplicate this at? Do I want them to be duplicated in a row going down, or do I want to duplicate them sideways?
I want it to go to the right. Can you make that work?
Yeah, probably not because of this
Why
particular
not?
design. We might not have enough space.
Oh, so
But
how could I fix that?
We can try. So we could move the design to one side first.
Perfect.
So we're going to use this little button down here to move it. I could just move it with my finger too. I'm going to move it until my machine knocks at me because that tells me that I've actually,
no
yes.
more.
And then I'm going to touch the button that's going side to side here. And then I'm going to hit the plus button here. And it still
too
tells
big.
me that my design is too big. Now I could rotate the design and then probably fix that, but we're just going to move it to the center, and
I was just trying to be a pain.
and then we're going to
How'd I
go. You did a good job.
Thank you.
So then we're going to put 1 on top of each other. So now we have 2, but we don't want them to be this close, do we?
We do not.
So we're going to use the buttons over here to spread those out.
So especially if these were like patches or something like that, you need to have space around them to work.
Exactly.
And to trim and have excess fabrics and things like that.
Yeah. What I like to do, and I know Lisa likes to do this first, is what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take this whole design and I'm going to recenter it.
Yep.
Because otherwise I might run into the top of the design. So I'm just going to tap the button to recenter. That little button there is the recenter key, in case anybody didn't know that. And then we're just going to space it out, and you can see the designs are spacing out. Now they don't space out.
It doesn't equal from center.
Right.
It'll space it from the original design.
Exactly. So we're spacing this out, and then, oh, that looks pretty good. So I'm
now
going to
recenter it again.
recenter it here.
So I always recommend anybody, before you leave this page, hit the recenter so that when you move forward, you're in the best position. If you need to switch it once you get into the hoop and move it all the way to the top left or whatever it happens to be, you can still do that. But this way you know you're in center and it's going to fit its best possible hooping.
Exactly. I also have the ability to see the size. So if my goal of this was to stitch this out in my 6x10 hoop, I actually spaced it out too far.
Yep.
I can see that this design right now is 5.66 by 11. So
Well,
I
what'd you do
could
that
make
for?
this a little bit smaller, and I can see that the design size is getting shorter. So I can scooch that back up a little bit,
You'd be good there.
and then I would be inside my
A
6x10 hoop.
So you can use all of those features that you have to know what your sizes are and different things, and it's all going to work out beautifully. I actually have used that. It'll tell me how far I am from center or how far I am from one another. Those things, those measurements over there will actually give you all of those details, which if you're trying to repeat something, sometimes you need to write that down so that you know, okay, this is where I'm at.
Exactly.
I need to be there again. If I do this again, I need to know that I need to shift X number of inches or whatever.
Right. Good information to have over there.
Always good information.
Then we can select the OK button. And again, we're back to that same screen.
So just to jump ahead, now when we go to the embroidery, you can see that we have the same colors matching up here. We have them in 2s. And so it automatically color sorted. So I'm okay.
Absolutely. The last button on here that we haven't talked about is the applique or patch maker.
Pick your name.
Do you have a preference for what
I
you
still
call it?
It's the applique button everywhere. So
Right.
I still use the applique when I say it. Not to mention that, you know, I do so on a luminaire and it truly is applique stuff.
Right.
Once you've upgraded that feature on that one. So I definitely still use the applique button, or applique word, I
Right.
guess, in my head. But you could certainly call it a patch button because it would do exactly that.
Exactly. So because we used our the border pattern feature, there's 2 of here. It wants to know if it's okay to separate that. So we're going to just say okay. And then you can see what it did here is it put information around the outside of the design here. So instead of treating this like as a singular object, it did put stuff
Into
over
the middle.
here in the
Right.
middle. So maybe that's not what you're going
That's
for.
probably not what I would go for. I would make that first and then multiply it out.
Exactly.
Yep.
Sometimes it works the way you want it and sometimes it doesn't.
And guess what, guys? It's super easy to go backwards.
It definitely is.
So, but this feature is really cool. It actually adds all 3 steps underneath that outline there. You have a placement line, a cut line, and a tack down, and then that satin stitch. So it'll be way down at the bottom, but there is those 3 additional stitches. You have your placement cut, all of that.
Yes.
It's all there. Everything that you need to make that an applique and have the correct pieces in the right spot.
Yes.
It's all right there,
Yes.
which is super fantastic in my opinion. So love that. I think that it's a great option. If you do have the Luminaire XJ or XE,
1 or 2.
1 or 2, 1, 2, 3 on the Luminaire,
Yep.
and you have a 300 series scan and cut, this feature is actually upgraded.
Yes.
And you have additional options on there. We're sitting in front of a Solaris, so we can't show you that at the moment, but it is a really, really great option. Both Sarah and I bought another scan and cut to get it, so we just thought of it as an upgrade to our Luminaires. It literally gives you the ability to turn a fill stitch into an applique like that,
Yes.
which is wicked awesome. So,
and we can also save this. So if like we're
Absolutely.
like, no, I've played with this too much.
I'm tired, I'm
It's
out.
I'm ready for bed. We can just save that to our memory, and we would be able to pull that up in that same screen that we were
Absolutely.
at last time.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I was saying, it's super easy to undo something.
Yep.
So if you're like, yeah, that applique is really not the feature that I wanted, you hit undo and it's gone. But there's also a redo. So you can put it right back if you did
Yep.
it on accident, which is really great. So the functionality and the editing tools have come so far.
They really
They've
have.
added so many different things. We just have so many options now on our machines. And the buttons are really not scary. And I promise you, if you push them, your machine will not blow up.
Right.
And if you kind of blew it up because you got to a place that you're like, I have no idea what I just did,
Right.
no big deal. Hit the home button, start over again.
Exactly.
You're not hurting anything by trying things out. It won't change the memory on your USB stick. It won't do any of those things. So you have the power to really take the pieces. You can mix and match and add designs together to create something. There's just so many options in the machines, and there really is no ceiling to your creativity. It's just your creativity and how much you want to play with it and how many buttons you're going to push.
Exactly.
So-
Exactly. So those are like the basic functions. We have some advanced features of the machine, which maybe we'll be able to cover a little bit more of those next week, because we're gonna do, I don't remember what we're doing.
I don't
next
remember
week.
either, but yeah, so we're talking about the design center or the IQ. There are some nice camera options on
And
many
projectors
machines, and then the projector on either the Luminaire or the Solaris.
Yeah.
And those are really, really great for so many reasons. And then there's all of the other things that are built in that use those features, you know, the
Exactly.
ability to connect designs and all of those things. So we're really talking about just basic features. We didn't talk a whole lot about anything that was the no-sew and the ability to move designs, but that's about the only thing that we really talked about that is just exclusive to the higher end machines. Most of these buttons that we've been talking about today are on just about every machine that we have in
They
the
are.
lineup.
Absolutely.
So there's just so many options. And if you're sitting at home and wondering, okay, yeah, but I have a brother, and you're sitting in front of a baby lock, they're the same buttons.
Yep.
They will all do the same things.
Yep. They even a lot of times it's almost identical. Like she said, some might be a little bit more round, a little bit more square, versus the two. But the icons, like
The icons and the names,
picture, it looks exactly the same. So
absolutely,
your brother icons should be the same as your baby lock
You bet.
icons. So that's
You
a really
bet.
nice feature really great for us since we sell both.
Yep.
We only have to
Same
remember one
answer.
icon.
Same answer to both. So it really is a lot of fun to expand what you even think that your machine can do. It's funny. You'll hear somebody say, well, I did this. And you're like, oh, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
You know, that's really cool that it does that. Why didn't I know that? You know,
Exactly.
and it's all a matter of just pushing the buttons and pushing your machine past maybe what it was intended to do and making it sing for you individually, because it's definitely got some singing power for sure. So
yeah, don't be afraid to touch the buttons. You know, especially if I mean, at the very least, you can turn it off and turn it back on.
absolutely. The only other things that we didn't really talk about is we briefly said that we were going to talk about the start stop button. So we actually have a nice selection of machines that will now lower the foot for you before, not before, when you're ready to sew.
Yes.
So instead of having to lower this button here with lowering your foot or whatever it is that you've got on your machine, instead of having to lower the foot to get that go button to turn green, it'll be green.
Yeah.
So if it's ready to stitch, it'll be green, and you can do that in the settings.
Find that in the settings menu, which it on this particular machine it's up at the top, but it looks like kind of like a little piece of lined paper with the corner folded down. So it's this one right up here. And when you're in embroidery, you kind of end up in the embroidery settings, but you'll be looking for something that says embroidery foot auto down. And if you turn that feature on, and then what happens, like she said, when you're ready to go, you don't have to put your foot down and then push the go button. You can just push your go button.
You just push the go button.
Yes.
And that is fantastic. So that is available, of course, on the top of the line, which you just saw, but it's also available on the 9.5 by 14 machines, and it's available on the new 6 by 10 machines.
Yes.
Because they added that when they revamped that one.
Yeah.
So our 1700s, 3700s, our Vesta Flare, Altair Meridians 1 and 2, XJE, XJ1 or 2, XE1 or 2.
Yeah.
All have that ability to lower that foot for you.
Exactly.
And it doesn't sound like it's that big of a deal.
Oh, but it's really nice.
Oh, it's so nice. It's literally one less button to push every time you have to do a color change.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of color changes when we embroider, right?
And the other thing that's really nice is just one more thing. A lot of times people are like, the button is red. I don't know what I'm missing.
Yeah.
If you tap the button, a lot of times your screen will tell, it's not going to do anything bad if you hit the button and it's red, but it will tell you what you need to do in order to get going. The next thing it's probably going to tell us is that hoop is too small.
Oh, yeah, it would definitely do that.
That'll fit.
That'll definitely fit. So at this point, it said attach the frame. So I attached the frame. I know you can barely see it, but it's like I attached the frame, I think.
Right.
But it's still red. Why is it red? So I pushed it again, and now it's telling me, hey, you didn't lock it in place.
Right.
So it literally, I mean, how many times have you had that covered up with a towel or a large sweatshirt or something, and you didn't see it?
Realize
you
it.
can't see that or maybe it was halfway down.
Right. I took it out, or I walked away and I trimmed out something and I came back and
that little lever down there is covered up and you can't see, and you're like, what is what's going on. The machine will tell you, hey, you need to lock that. As soon as I lock it, that error goes away and it says, hey, I'm ready to stitch now. I'm going to move. And you go, okay, great. So it's now ready to stitch. And I know you guys can't see it, but my button's green.
Yeah.
I don't have to push the foot down
Mm-hmm.
to hit go.
Right.
I
And
could.
if that was the case, again, it would also, now it would tell you your foot's up. Put your foot down.
You need to lower your foot.
Yep.
Lower
So
the presser foot before you can sew.
if the reason that you can't sew is because you have 4 things going on, it's going to just keep giving you the message until you finally clear all of your errors.
Until you clear it all and it'll say, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah, which is a really nice feature because, I mean, some days are just...
Some days our brains just aren't
Like
keeping up with the rest of us.
Right. It feels like the embroidery gods are not with us. Your mom gave us an angry face.
Mom, what are you doing?
Lisa's mom. I know she
Why
didn't
are
do
you
that on
mad?
purpose. I'm sure she didn't.
Mom.
I'm sure she's not angry.
I'm sure she's not. Maybe she's angry that she didn't know something and we taught her something new. We're going to go with that. She's mad at herself, not us. See, there you go.
All right.
Hopefully that took a little bit of the mystery out of some of those things and gives you a little bit more, oh, now we have another one. Hopefully that takes the mystery out of those lovely editing buttons and helps you feel a little bit more comfortable to push the buttons because there's nothing more fun than pushing buttons.
I like to push buttons.
So thanks again for hanging out with us. We really appreciate you guys. And don't forget. I think she gave us a second one.
Yep.
So it's all good.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and share and not be angry.
Don't be angry with us.
Bye, guys. We'll see you next week.
Oh.
Bye. Gotta love my mother.